Let me do the honors of introducing you the two speakers from today. But first, let me quickly share some slides. Um, and uh, Webinars. Emily, can you please give me a permission to go with that? And I'll do the share slides. But first, I'll just introduce. We've got two legends here. It's Nick Sagalski, Darren McKee. One of like, if you tell me to name three sales experts, those two guys will be in top two, and then whoever's third will be there. I've learned so much from both of you. Nick, I've been listening to 30 Minutes to President's Club. Nick is the founder of 30 Minutes to President's Club. It's probably the number one podcast for salespeople in B2B world. I don't know a better one. And he's literally one of the best sales experts that I'm aware of. And Darren is probably my go-to OG LinkedIn guy. He's also the reason why I've started posting. I've seen Darren doing so well. I've seen Darren sharing his stories. I was like, wow, I can try to replicate maybe something happens with it. So thank you for being an inspiration. You two are absolute OGs. And how are y'all feeling today?
Man, I feel great. I'm just honored to, hear you say that. You're slowly surpassing me, which is probably the greatest joy of any OG is when people come behind them and do better. So, man, I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to share just a little bit of a different take and context around like DMs and outreach on LinkedIn via that way versus email. So, yeah, just being in the room with Nick's great. Man, excited to be here.
It's gonna
That's
be a
very
good one, Yuri. I woke up, it's pretty early. I'm on the west coast of the US, California. And so it's pretty early. So I woke up this morning and I went to the gym to get myself sort of going. And I was in the gym bench pressing, speaking cold email best practices out loud to myself. They kicked me out because I was sort of causing a scene. So no, I'm
yeah.
excited. It's gonna be a good one. Let's talk about some
You got
emails.
reported as a spammer, Nick. Yeah, just a quick thing to add. Darren is vice president and strategic partnerships of Sky. Nick is the founder of 30 Minutes to President's Club. Probably those two companies you know of and aware of. How are we going to kickstart this conversation? We're going to talk about what works in sales and what works in emails and social outbound DMs. We're going to focus on that. Mm, the agenda of this meeting will be this. We'll talk about the best practices when it comes to emailing and outbound sales. But before we do that, we actually need to understand what do we need to do to deliver those messages to be seen, because even the best cold emails bring zero results if they get reported as spam. The same goes for LinkedIn. So once we cover email deliverability practices, we'll go on and talk about what makes a cold email a great one in 2024. And then we'll show you the actual examples of taking the cold email from one and rewriting it, adapting it to a cold email that works in 2024 and adapting it to a LinkedIn message. So without further ado, let's go. Um, First thing, I'll take care a little bit of that, but Darren and Nick will also add their perspectives, is what it takes to get your email into the inbox. As I said, nothing else matters if your email isn't spam. You can be the best cold emailer out there, but it won't deliver you the result. So we'll try to make it as actionable as possible. So here's what, from a perspective of a seller, what you can do yourself without relying also on technical team. Know the reputation of your domain. Check it as much as you can, because it literally means this. If your domain has a good reputation, you're delivering inbox into the primary. You're delivering emails into the primary inbox. If you have a poor score, you're spamming people. So it's crucial to have a good score. And the tools you can use, those are free tools. You can Google them online. Talos, Mail Tester, Sender Score. Quickly, just make sure that you're in a good spot when it comes to your domain.
Yuri, can I add one thing on that piece?
So yes,
I,
yes.
I think one of the most frustrating things for a salesperson or a sales team is putting a lot of effort into writing a great sales email. You research the prospect, you find a nugget of information, you spend time writing an effective message. And prospects are already skeptical enough of any sort of sales outreach. So even if you do land in their primary inbox, you're still fighting an uphill battle because people have a stigma about cold outreach. If your message that you put a ton of work in lands in spam or in the other inbox, you have almost no chance of actually booking a meeting. And so what this slide is showing is it should actually show where your org should be focusing your efforts to start. If your domain reputation is healthy, and if you're doing things that get you in the inbox, awesome. Proceed with writing great cold emails, which we're going to talk about later in this presentation. If your domain is garbage, it does not matter how great of a sales email you write, you're not going to get a response. It's there's a saying, I don't know if this is going to translate. If a tree falls in the forest, does it and no one's there to hear it, does it actually make a noise? Well, if you write a really, really great cold email, but nobody sees it, I promise you, it doesn't make a noise. You're not going to get a response. So this first piece here, everybody on this should go check this now, because if your domain is garbage, you probably need to fix that before you go uber personalizing the next 42 cold emails that you send. Okay, sorry. I needed to go on that riff.
Very valid point. Like, there's no reason to personalize. There's no reason to spend time to crafting amazing cold emails if you're just gonna end up being ghosted just because of the technical reasons, not even the person deciding to ghost you. That's the worst. Second thing that you should be aware of when preparing to write cold emails, know about SPF and DECIM. Those are the two records that are separating you from being a spammer to a cold email winner. And it's fairly simple. Right now, you have a tools that are automatically checking for you, like Woodpecker. It checks the SPF and DECIM automatically for you. But if you don't have such a tool, it's fairly easy to get it. SPF just tells you that, hey, this is not a spammer. And DECIM is the record that protects your message from being hijacked. So those are the two things that are making you not a spammer, but actually a cold email winner.
Yeah, and just to add one quick thing, just from like a LinkedIn DM perspective, you all listening, like, listen, there may not be SPF and other records there, but what people can do is you spam them, guess what they do? They report you. Guess what that does? That flags LinkedIn that you're a spammer, right? And so I talk to people, I train people on this all the time. It's like the more people that do that, the less likely they are to see your messages coming through. And then also it trickles into the less likely they're able to see your content that you're putting out into the world. So don't let your DMs completely destroy your entire reach on LinkedIn.
Yes. Like, I mean, I've seen so many things changing on LinkedIn, but the one thing keeps and stays as certain ones. If people are reporting you, your reach goes down. So always take care of that. Separate domain for cold emails. We've talked about the importance of having a good score for your domain, but things not always go as planned. Sometimes things might happen because of the changes that you didn't, you were not able to predict. So you don't want that all to happen to your main domain that you're having right now. Imagine this thing. You have one domain, the sky.com. Let's say, Darren, this is your domain. You're sending, well, you're not actually overreaching, spamming people with the cold emails, but you've decided, hey, I'll just go with a couple of cold emails for this many months. And all of a sudden, you realize that the score of your domain goes down. And now it's not only translating to you, but all of a sudden your CEO is not able to deliver the inbox from to the primary inbox. And imagine that conversation when your CEO comes like, hey, why my partners reporting that I've been spamming them? That's the worst. So you don't want all of that smoke. Create a separate domain, protect yourself, try with the words like get, try, join before your main company domain. So an example of Woodpecker, that's woodpecker.co, but our outreach domains would be getwoodpecker.co, trywoodpecker.co, and stuff like that. So
Yuri, there was a question from LinkedIn which said, what do you mean by a garbage domain? And I think, tell me if I'm getting this right. I think you have more technical expertise than me. Your domain is essentially the website address that's at the end of your email that you send. So for you, when you email me, it's Yuri@Woodpecker.com. And what will happen is if you send enough outreach, you might poison the well of your domain and get flagged as we've been calling it a garbage domain. You might get flagged as oh, this domain, this website, this company sends a lot of email that gets flagged as spam. And what that will do is you sort of like taint your email sending domain. And so what Yuri is suggesting is you might choose to set up a separate domain from which you send your emails. Getwoodpecker.com, trywoodpecker.com. I think we have one for 30 Minutes to President's Club called talk at 30minutes to presidentsclub.com for like the marketing emails that we send. And the idea is you want to keep your maybe higher volume outreach separate from your normal course of business emails so that if something goes wrong with your outreach or if you've damaged the reputation of one of your emails, you have the ability to change and start fresh. I think that's hopefully, I can't see the LinkedIn feed. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if it didn't and we can give more detail.
I love it. I love this explanation. This kind of tells you why you have the number one, like top 1% podcast on the Spotify, Nick.
You
That's
flatter
kind
me, Yuri.
of spam words. Those are universal killers of reach. Either that's LinkedIn, that's emails, even on a call. This is you may not hit the technical spam filters, but our mental spam filters are gonna notice that hey, this is a sales pitch, this is a sales email, this is a sales LinkedIn DM. So you want to stay away as far as possible from those because spam words equal triggering of the spam filters, hey, and equals I see this email as somebody trying to push me for a sale.
Mm.
This also goes for the technical reasons because not only people have their mental spam filters, the technical ones are also there. Once the Google, Microsoft, whatever, once those servers see the words such as free sales, buy deal, price, they automatically start decreasing the score of your email domain. The more you send those words, the more the score will go down. And actually, what you'll end up having, let's say I've been sending one template email across 1 month with words free sales and deal in it. And by the end of that month, my score of the domain will go exponentially down, which will mean that I'll be able to deliver less emails that I would want it to.
Yeah, I'll add one thing here where like, listen, when you're building an organization and you're working on that domain and you're working on that score and you've built it up to something great, and then you hire a new SDR or you hire a new AE that came from another business that did something some sort of way, one person can ruin that for the entire organization. So like, I think it's just really important from like a sales enablement standpoint and a training standpoint that like, this is directly tied to revenue. Not only from like the outreach perspective, but from the customer success perspective, from people that are already in your funnel, for people that you have to talk to on a daily basis. And so don't let one person ruin this for everyone.
Yeah, this is the worst. Like, as long as you finally build up that momentum just for one person to kind of ruin it for everyone, and now everyone's gonna kind of recover from that. That's the worst.
So the next action item people need to take after this is go check their email templates for all of those words you put on that slide
Oh
and
yeah.
make sure that you remove them. Free
Oh yeah.
I
sales
actually have one of
email.
those words in one of my recent emails. And so being a panelist on there, this is actually kind of convicting to me as well. So I appreciate this.
Well, we're all learning. I'm sure I have a lot of those words myself because if I remember correctly, there are around 500 spanner words to avoid,
Wow.
which is makes it pretty hard to write a great cold email or
Do you have a
either.
place where those are all listed? I'm sure people would love to see that,
Yes,
Yuri.
you can go to Woodpecker's blog, check out the spam words. We've collected the list out there. Just type spam words woodpecker.co and you'll see the list of it.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out because
Never exceed sending limits. The same goes for LinkedIn, the same goes for emails. There are some technical rules that you have to follow. LinkedIn is the landlord. Email servers are the landlords. They gave us the rules. Like it or not, you have to follow them. Sending limits are one of those. If you're gonna get higher to the sending limit that you're allowed to send, you're gonna get blocked. So never go above the sending limits. And the pro tip is this: avoid having huge spikes and drops. Try to be consistent when you're sending emails. So an example of that would be, it's not probably a good idea to send 400 messages today, then no messages for 3 days, and then drop 500 and other messages on day 4 or 5. It's way better idea to kind of, stretch it out. Send 70 messages today, 75 tomorrow, 80 in a couple of days, and kind of play around with where the drops are not that big. So this is a really good tip that I don't know a lot of people are really practicing, but it has a huge, huge influence on your deliverability.
A couple ways I think people could probably put that into action is, I think there are some tools. I think Woodpecker probably helps with the fluctuations in terms of throttling sending. But if you don't have a tool like that, one thing you might consider doing is prospecting every single day and keeping consistent with that. If you can't do that, because sometimes people, like, life gets in the way, you might have kids, you might have a sick family member. What you might choose to do is, if you're going to be sending a lot of prospecting emails, write them all in one big batch and then keep them in your drafts folder and then send the same amount every single day. So if you can't get to prospecting every single day, you could choose to batch all of the work up front and then choose to manually space those things out. Yeah, Yuri, that was an eye opener for me. You were like, dude, if you go from sending 12 messages a day to 1,200 messages a day, servers are going to see that and they're going to flag it.
Yeah. From a LinkedIn perspective, if anybody's curious about this, right? I have to pull people out of the garbage all the time because they've used an automation tool to send 30 to 100, messages a day. LinkedIn will look and see like, oh, this is the exact same message you sent to every single person. You're spamming the entire LinkedIn universe. And it takes a long time to get out of that funk. And so anytime I see that and I look in people's, I do a lot of these trainings and I look at their emails or their DMs and it's the same copy and pasted thing. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Like you're totally like destroying your entire presence. And like, I see LinkedIn as my domain, right? I have to keep it clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. You only got one. You don't have
you only have one. You can't go make a new one. Well, you can, but you start at 0.
Well, imagine that, being able to transform all the followers you have to another account. Well, that would be.
That keeps me up at night. Don't talk about that.
And the last thing we need to mention is the inbox rotation. With the recent Google changes that they brought to their algorithm, you need an inbox rotation if you want to keep sending to the higher amount of emails per day. Because here's the deal. Back in 2018, you were able to send 400, 500 messages a day. Well, those days are gone. You cannot send that many emails right now because let's say 3 out of those emails report you as a spammer, or the servers of 3 recipients see you as a spammer. Well, what happens there? You're getting blocked. And that's a huge pain. You don't want that. So the new rules suggest that you keep sending around 40 to 50 emails a day. That's probably the best, the optimum volume. And but how do you scale like your sales outreach when you only get to send around 40 to 50 emails a day? Well, the answer for that would be inbox rotation. You set up a couple of domains and you start your outreach campaign with one email address, and after 50 or 40 messages, the domain automatically rotates to another one. So let's say I've started with getwoodpecker.co, and within 50 emails, my domain transitions into trywoodpecker.co, and I'm able to contact more people that way without being reported as a spammer. So the tools right now allow you to automate that. Woodpecker certainly does, and there are other tools on the market as well. But that's like a pro tip that you have to take care of if you want to start sending a little bit more emails, let's say 200, 150 emails a day. But be careful. You always have to be relevant. Don't spam people.
Yuri, there's an interesting question in the chat from Maria who said, in terms of the volatility of my email volume, what about the weekend? Should I keep sending the same amount on the weekend? I don't know if either of you guys know. I'm not sure.
Well, the weekends are a little bit excluded. So it's kind of, you have to replicate the normal human behavior. And the servers, they like the data and AI and machine learnings, they study the data that's out there. If they see some patterns that are very weird. Let's say people keep sending emails, huge bunches of emails on weekends. That might be suspicious to them. So you just have to think from that perspective what the normal behavior looks like and kind of try to keep it with those in that space.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Now we're getting to the real secret sauce here, talking about cold email practices. So what it takes to create the best cold email in 2024. And I'll let Nick start from there.
Let's go, Nick.
And
Show us the way, man. Show us the way.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
you're
The
like,
pressure's
what
on.
deep? Who points the way?
So just to recap what we talked about from the last section, everything we are about to cover is meaningless if your prospect does not even see your email. So make sure that you're doing the things you need to get the email in the inbox first. Check your domain reputation. Look through your email templates and the frameworks that you have set up and remove those spam words that Yuri was talking about. Find a way to manage the volume and the volatility of that volume so that you are not having extreme variances in how many emails you're sending from day to day. And then consider rotating the domains from which you're sending your emails. All of those things should help you have your emails seen even more, because even a mediocre email that your prospect sees is going to do much, much better than the best sales email in the world that they don't even see because you went to spam or you got blocked. So take care of all of those things. And then when you get that right, let's get these things right. Before I talk about the subject lines, which is what I think everybody sees on the screen here, my philosophy with cold email is as follows. Most cold emails fail because of indigestion, not because of starvation. And what that means is most cold emails fail because you try to give your prospect either too much information or you make it too challenging for them to actually understand the problem you solve, what you do, and what the heck you're even asking for. It's indigestion. There's too much information and they can't get it easily. And you have to make it extremely, extremely easy for your prospect to get those three things. What problem do you solve? How do you solve it? What do you want from them? If they can't get that immediately, your cold email is going to get deleted because you are asking them to do thinking work. We are showing up unsolicited in our prospect's inbox, dumping work on them. No question. Now, we have the right intent. We want to make their life easier. We want to solve a problem for them. We want to sell our thing. But if we're going to start the relationship asking them to take action on something, respond to your email, schedule a meeting on their busy calendar, we need to start on the right foot and make it extremely easy for them to get those things. So the onus is on you. There's a great Mark Twain quote, which is, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. The onus is on you, salespeople, to make your message extremely, extremely easy for the other person to get, just like that. Starvation is not going to happen. Do not worry. Simpler is usually better. And so it starts with the subject line. Before we get into the subject lines, I just went on a massive soliloquy. Darren, Yuri, you guys might have some stuff to add there. So I'll take a breath.
I'm right there with you, right? Like for me, it's like one of the things that gives me the most pain when reading, people's emails or DMs is like, here's my Calendly link, or asking our prospects what their email is. Like, listen, if we're good, we have access to their email address, right? Like we shouldn't have to ask that. And to your point of like making people do work, I hate making people go to my Calendly link, find time. And quite frankly, I'm pretty busy and I don't like people booking on my calendar when I don't want them to book on my calendar. And so for me, I always go out 1 week ahead, maybe even 2 weeks ahead, because I sell into the C-suite. They don't have time to meet with me this week. And to think that they have time tomorrow to meet with me is kind of inconsiderate, right? And so to your point, like you just stop making them do so much work.
100%.
Yeah. What I would add from that perspective, I see clearly that based on data. I've sent and received hundreds and thousands of cold emails over the last 8 years. And the best cold emails were not necessarily had the best wordings, but they were structured the best. You could clearly see one idea per email. Person knows what to do with that email because there is one CTA, call to action. It's clear what they should do. It's shorter one. You're seeing like from a structure out there, there are no frictions. You're just saying, okay, this is like the premise, why are you reaching out? This is the context. This is what's in it for me, and this is what do you want. Okay, it's clear. So I'm all up with that. I'm up with you guys.
All right, cool. Let's talk about subject lines then. Subject lines. The goal of a subject line is not to get the prospect to say, cool, send me a DocuSign. Let's do this thing. The goal of a cold email is not to get them to say, yeah, let's sign a deal. The goal here is to get them to say, huh, I do have that problem. Yeah, maybe it is worth meeting with Darren. You're not going to get them to do that based off of your subject line. So you shouldn't be talking about the problem or the solution or anything in depth. You shouldn't be trying to sell in the subject line. Keep it short. And the goal of the subject line, get them to open your email so they can see that longer message and then take action from there. And generally, you want to keep your subject lines short. Generally, you want to avoid things that sound like commercials or something that we put on a billboard. Get more leads today. Expand revenue 42%. Stuff like that screams sales email. And so generally, I want to make my email about, or my subject line, something that is about them, that gets them to say, oh, this is meant for me. And there's a couple ways you can do this. One, when you're doing your research, like you might find something about them that you can put in the subject line and eventually relate to your solution in your prospecting email. But if you can't do that, one other approach that's worked really well for me is making my subject line related to something that is happening in the real world. And what I mean by that is if I call Darren, if I cold call Darren, he doesn't pick up, I leave him a voicemail, I'm going to send him an email right after with the subject line, just called. And that works because Darren's like, okay, see a missed call on my phone, get an email right after that says just called. He's probably going to open that one. Other ways that I've done this is if there's an upcoming conference that I know my prospect might be attending, even if I'm not going to that conference, I might send them a subject line. Like when I sold legal tech, there was a big legal tech conference called ILTACon, International Legal Technology Conference. And I would send subject line, like emails with a subject line of like ILTACon 2024. And I would say, hey, I saw you're on the list. And the email would say, I saw you're on the list for this. My guess is you're going because you want to learn about ways to improve your law firm's financial outcomes, or I don't even remember how I would write it. But I'd say, my guess is you're going because of this. Like, we can help with that. Do you want to talk? Even if I wasn't going, I would say, hey, you're going to this thing. I saw you on the list. Could we talk about this? So I try to relate it to stuff that's happening on planet Earth rather than just like nebulous benefits that I'm thinking about in my head. But I'm curious what's worked for you guys.
Yeah, that's so good. Also, I've been to ILTACon. We probably ran across each other, but
oh my gosh,
yeah, great times. I think one of the things that you said is absolutely key. Like, if I work really hard to send a really good email to, a CLO of a Fortune 50 organization, and I go into LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's my domain. This is where I spend the most amount of time, and they have the solid green little circle beside their name. That means that they have LinkedIn like up and ready to rock. So do you know what my message is? I immediately go to LinkedIn. If they're solid green, I say, just sent you an email making sure you saw it. Period.
Wow.
That's it. They go back. I can look into my system and see that they've opened it. Right. That's like, it's the king. So I follow those bubbles all day long, because can you imagine being able to send an email knowing that somebody was like opening and looking at their email? That's what that bubble is. But you better send a dang good one.
That's good.
Yeah, that's very good. And from a data perspective, guys, what I can tell you is that 1 to 3 word subject lines work the best. So the examples that you've given here are actually data based. Like data suggests that 2 word subject lines are the optimal, and 1 word is the next best thing, and the 3 word is the next best thing. But keeping it boring, kind of, trying to avoid that cliche, oh my God, this is marketing email, is the key. Avoid spam filters.
Cool. All right, we talked a lot about subject lines. Let's talk about what's next. Okay, we're talking about the body of the email. There's one other piece that I want to add that sort of sits like halfway between subject line and body. And that is the concept of the preview text of your email. So, folks listening, if you think about your email inbox, before you open up any email, you can usually see the sender name, the subject line, and the first, I don't know, like 30 to 50 characters of the email. So you can usually see like the first part of the first sentence. People look at that piece. It's almost like an extension of your subject line. And so what I would encourage folks listening to this to do is go look at generic sales emails. Go look at your spam inbox or get somebody on your team, like one of your executives, to send you a bunch of the sales emails that they get. And you'll start to see patterns in the way that people structure the first part of their emails. Yuri, I was looking at your LinkedIn, or I noticed X, or I saw Y, or I was researching this, or hi, Yuri, my name is Nick Sigelski, and I'm a business development rep with Woodpecker. Like, people lead emails. Most salespeople start their emails in the same 5 or 6 ways. Well, one of my philosophies about sales is you can't be perceived to be better until you are first perceived to be different. And so, if you want to be a great salesperson, really all you have to do is look at what the masses are doing and then just do the opposite, do different than that. And so I stole this from Charlotte Johnson. She has a really great philosophy around preview text. Like, she'll just get rid of she'll sort of like flip her stuff. So she'll be like, she'll literally kick an email off and it will start scrolling through your careers page. And I noticed, as opposed to I noticed X. She'll put scrolling through or looking at or stumbled. Like, I don't know if she'll do stumbled, but like, I love you to scrolling through your careers page because that doesn't look like a normal sales email. So my recommendation on preview text, find a way to make it different. I'll pause. You guys might have any things there before we talk about the body.
I think to Charlotte's point, right? Like, this is no different than like what Mr. Beast says about YouTube, like leading with the climax, right? It's the same with the LinkedIn post. It's the same with the LinkedIn DM. You asked to do something, and I lead revenue for a startup. I'm going to read you a couple that I see right now that I got this morning. Sure. Final call, don't miss out. I'm like, I'm totally going to miss out on that, right? I noticed you started. This is another one. I mean, I can just go through all of these, and they're so bad. Darren, been seeing your post. It's written wrong. I'm not going to agree to this, right? Like, there's
been seeing your post.
So many things that are in here that are just like, that are bad. But then there's another one that I responded to, and it's like, Darren, I'm traveling next week. And I'm like, why, this is weird. So I opened it, and it's somebody that's trying to get a meeting with me in 2 weeks, but he's traveling next week. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Guess who I agreed to meet with?
That guy.
That guy.
That's a really good one for like deals in your pipeline that you're like sort of bumping and trying to move along. Like, I know the philosophy is you always are supposed to get a next step on the calendar, but the reality is sometimes that stuff falls off and you've got to follow up with your prospect. And for a long time, like, I would just be like, I'd send very generic, like, hey, any updates on this? How are you feeling on this? Trying to kick them along. And I've actually even used that in deals where it's like, hey, just a heads up, I'm going to be out of the office next week. And so like, if you need something, I'm not going to be around. And it's weird when I send those, I get way better responses than if I'm like trying to push the deal. It's kind of weird. That's interesting.
I guess that's the psychology at work. That's the psychology at work. Like, when you're not needy and you're not desperate, people are seeing like, oh, he's actually human. He's actually got something to value. Like, he's got something to show me. So that's just like the theory that you said. See what everybody's doing and do the opposite. This is the practice of it.
I love it. We'll get into body in a sec. There's a couple questions in the chat. One is to me, and then one I think is for you, Darren. The first one says, Nick, would you open an email with the subject line wrestling or one with the subject line pizza? Doesn't it scream spam to you? If someone emailed me with the subject line pizza, and then I don't make the rest of it doesn't totally make sense to me, question asker. So let me know if you can clarify that piece. But wrestling, I would open. I was a wrestler in college. I still coach wrestling today. Like, I love wrestling. If somebody emailed me about wrestling, and the context on this one, actually, my co-founder of 30 Minutes President's Club, Armand, also was a wrestler and loves it. And somebody sent him a cold email once with a subject line wrestling, and he was a VP of sales. And it was about The body of the email was like, does it ever feel like you have to wrestle your reps into making cold calls? And so they related wrestling to the value prop of what they helped with. So I would open that. The pizza one, I think that was there because there was once a prospect who made a whole post, or they had a thing on their Twitter about how they loved pizza and they would rate different pizzas. So the goal is relate it to something you've seen about them in the real world. That's where those came from. Darren,
So
the
yeah.
question for you. Can we discuss when to send a written message versus a voice recording versus a video message? Do you ever come out strong with a video message or voice recording on first outreach? LinkedIn makes these different message types easy.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to run through my cadence really quick. It's proof. I send about 150 to 300 DMs every single week. You connect with that person, they accept your request, right? I know they're a buyer, they're a prospect, and you really want to, you want to get that meeting with them. Don't. Just send the message. Thanks so much for connecting. Appreciate you. Period. Guess what's going to happen tomorrow morning? When you share a piece of content, they're going to see that, right? They'd be like, oh, this guy or this gal's real. Like they're sharing some really great content. 2 days later, get on video, walk outside in some sunshine, send them a really, really good message. Do your research. Look at their 10K. Look at their sustainability report. Know where they came from. Know that they used to work at a previous competitor of yours. Make this the best message that they've ever seen. And the reason why I say walk outside, any of us that are watching this can sit in front of a computer screen and read notes about their 10K. The 1% can walk down the street and remember the 10K. So that's the part that like it's hugely different. But yeah, sometimes I lead with the video, sometimes I lead with the audio, sometimes I lead with the message. This is no different than email. It takes 6, 7, 8, 9 different touches in order to get somebody to respond. I just sold a 140K deal. I had messaged the lady 16 times over the last year and a half. Do you know how many she told me she saw the other day? Just the last one.
Wow.
She's too busy, but the last one hit her, right? And so I think it's just important to know that you just have to do the follow-up. You have to make sure that you're in their inbox often and you're being authentic.
Yeah, I love it. Staying on top of mind is basically like, how do you win right now? And what you've said there resonates so much with me because I'm seeing so much where people try to be inauthentic by fake personalization, kind of try to segue into a problem that does not exist. Well, AI is here and it can do pretty much the same stuff for you. So what it makes it different from the AI? What I've seen the best reps and the best cold emails do is they synthesize well. Like they are able to connect the dots and see like, here's the business value that are tied specifically for you. I've seen this happening, which means that X is happening as well. Well, and then kind of showing the value. This is how do you stand out among all the other sales reps. And I love it, Darren. So good.
That's killer. Okay, I know we're running short on time, so let's talk about the body of the email. Again, let's go back to starvation, indigestion. A lot of mistakes I see folks make is they think they need to over-explain the problem or the solution. Both of these should be really, really short. You want the person to see your email and say, yeah, that problem sounds right. Oh, that's an interesting teaser about how they might solve it. Your ask, do you want to learn more? Open to learning more. Keep it really, really easy. Yes, that's all you want. All you want is I'd like to learn more to some degree. So let's make this a little bit real. I think there's a lot of folks who get into sales who get taught about the idea of a value proposition. If you went to college, you might have learned about that in one of your business classes. They talk about your value proposition. And I think from a sales context, it's kind of garbage. I prefer what I call a problem proposition, which is your value proposition talks about how you're great and the problems you solve. The problem proposition talks about the problem your prospect is facing. So I'll just give one example. If I am prospecting a CFO of a law firm, I might write an email and the problem might be something like, I talk to a lot of CFOs of insurance defense law firms who tell me they're frustrated with all of the deductions, rejections, and appeals that they get on the bills they send to their insurance carrier clients. I'm writing to you about a solution that can make sure all of your bills go out clean and you don't have to deal with the back and forth to collect cash. Would you be open to learning more? I want to have one sentence on the problem, one sentence on the solution, and then the CTA. Just standardize it. I frankly just like use open to learn more or care to learn more. Don't rethink this every single time. Keep it really, really simple. If you're including, if the way that you describe the problem or your solution includes stuff like optimizing cash flow or maximizing revenue, you're probably being too generic. One other sort of piece of advice I would give, and if you think about like the problem and the way you describe the solution, is there's a spectrum of like extreme specificity that is exactly the problem your prospect is dealing with, and genericness. And you can even go past and be too specific and like almost overshoot their problem. You're better off being too specific and like sort of missing their problem a bit, but getting close, than being too generic. I think sometimes a lot of people want to like, they want their emails to capture every single possible use case they could solve or every possible problem case they could deal with. And I think that often lends yourself to being too generic, where you talked about, you're saying optimizing or a single pane of glass or phrases like that that sound nice but don't really mean anything. You're probably you're being too generic, and you're putting the work back on your prospects to figure out how your solution actually connects with something they're dealing with. I'd be curious to hear from you two, though, because I'm sure you guys have a perspective.
I think the one thing that I get a lot, people are like, I just don't want to sound like I'm salesy, or I don't want to come off that way. And my response is like, dude, be proud to be in sales. Like, I am so proud to be able to have a solution to sell to someone. Like, it gives me so much joy, right? So I think when I take that mindset into my conversation, and I'm big on content generated ICP like leads, right? So like, I don't talk about sales often. I talk about learning and development and organizational development and IO psychology. I'm getting into the shoes of my buyer, right? I share more content than anyone that they follow.
Yeah.
Guess whose stuff they see every freaking morning? Mine. So when I send them an email, or when I send them a DM, sometimes all it is 5 words. Hey, can we catch up next week?
Oh.
They know who I am. They've seen my stuff. I don't have to talk about everything because they can read everything that I've already put out to the world, right? So it's just it's kind of an interesting thing of like where I'm such a fan of content to your ICP, and like to this thing. I don't join sales podcasts often or webinars. I join them with my chief talent officer or chief learning officer or VP of OD, because that's where I'm selling. And so many people get that wrong.
Love it.
Yeah, and like I always keep saying that follow-ups is the way to stay on top of mind. Well, guess what content creation is? It's also a way to stay on top of mind. So why not?
Cool.
Let's
What do
go.
we have? What do we have next?
Writing style tips. I know we're running short on time, so that's the thing. Do you want to speed it up a little bit here and go to the real
Yeah, I mean, I
example?
think generally you want to write like a human being would write. I think sometimes folks confuse professionalism and formality. Those two are not always the same. You can be professional and informal. Don't think you need to say, "Dear Mr. McKee." Like when I would prospect to like attorneys, I always thought like I literally would write, "Dear Mr. McKee," and like people don't do that. Just say Darren.
Yeah.
So you want to be informal but still professional. Use contractions, write conversationally, read your email out loud, send it to like a buddy of yours. If they see it and they're like, dude, this doesn't sound like you at all, make it more like you. Remove whatever jargon you can. So stuff like platform or workflow or single pane of glass or optimize, words like those might be like they're often a catch-all for any product. They're not specific enough for your prospect to actually understand what you do and make you blend in with a sales email. We already talked about the preview text, which says under start strong. And then the last piece is like your prospect's probably looking at your message on the phone. And so you want to write in a way that they don't have to scroll and again, do a ton of work. So send your email to yourself. If you have to scroll or it just like it looks like a lot, you want it to land in their inbox and you want it to be easy for them to take action on. You want them to see it, understand it, and then clear it. The way that most people triage their inbox is they use the 4 Ds: delete, defer, delegate, do. You want them to do your email. Take action on it, not delete your email or defer your email. You want them to respond and say, yep, I'm interested. Or yeah, or no, I'm not. And so make it as easy as possible. Make it very, very short. It should look like you wrote it in line when you were waiting for your Starbucks, not like you were sending out a mass template.
Yeah, and I just want to back it up by data. This, if you write in conversationally, it's gonna influence your performance of cold emails and it's gonna make them 83% better. If you're gonna remove the jargon, data says that it's gonna influence your emails by increasing the engagement by 50%. If you're keeping within 70 characters the first line, your email is gonna get way more opened. And if your emails are mobile optimized, well, we're in this trend right now that in 2024, around 85% of people see the first notification about email on their phones. So it's just smart to automate that and it's smart to adapt it to phones. Mobile optimized emails are the goal.
How do you do this on LinkedIn, Darren? I'm curious your take on some of this stuff and how that transfers over to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I try to just keep it as short as possible, right? Listen, I will tell everybody on this call, please don't have LinkedIn notifications turned on your cell phone. You'll drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
But to your point, I try to keep it short. And this is some you can take this, and y'all will probably book a ton of meetings off of this. But listen, I've been in sales for a long time. I pick a city every month, and I prospect into that city, right? And so next month is Atlanta. And so I literally will pick a coffee shop right by their office and I'll say, hey, I'll be in Atlanta on April 12th and 13th. Would love to have coffee. I'm meeting with the CLO of ABCD companies as well. I'm not going to Atlanta yet. But the moment I get 4 meetings, I'm in Atlanta, like face to face. I've probably booked 30 meetings this year just doing that. And I've had to travel a little bit, but like I'm in person. And people want in person right now.
This is the top 1% outreach. I mean, this is so cool. And I like, listen, no wonders why you're growing so fast on LinkedIn. You're just spinning all those golden nuggets. Bonus
Charging
tips.
now.
Bonus tips.
You want
I'd
to
say
read
from
them?
my perspective, sending PDFs, large attachments is no go for deliverability. Probably the same goes for LinkedIn, but I'll add Darren and Nick chime on that.
I'll start and then let Nick wrap us up because this is his thing. So from LinkedIn, yeah, man, I'm not sending PDFs and case studies and large attachments. I'm also not sending links to video messages that people have to click. Again, making people do work. Again, it kind of looks a little bit sketchy, making me click a link. So I just send a native video right to it. I don't care about seeing if they've opened it or how long that they've read it. I'm gonna know if they saw it or not. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not sending a bunch unless people ask for it. If they ask for it, heck yeah, I'm just sending whatever they want.
That's really good. I mean, that's making me rethink even my prospecting because right now what I'm doing is because I book a lot of meetings on LinkedIn. Also, I'm sending I'll send a 90-second video that sort of gives a summary of like how I work with my prospects, and I'm sending them a video that takes them out to a different link. And you're right, they have to click it. Then LinkedIn is like, do you trust this link? And it's like work for them versus just clicking watch in their app. So, okay, now see, I'm learning from you also. Look at that. I just think like sometimes salespeople get taught that they get told, oh, you got to always be adding value. All your follow-ups should add value. And they somehow think that an unsolicited case study about digital transformation is adding value. It's not. You're junking up your prospect's inbox with something that they don't want to read. And I think some of that is like folks confuse what should be sent in a prospecting email with what should be shared in the sales cycle. Those are different things sometimes. And so I guess that case study on digital transformation might be valuable at some point in sales cycle, but it's not if you're just spamming people and blasting out a bunch of PDFs and case studies about how Honeywell improved speed to lead 12.5%. Why is the prospect interested in that? They're not yet. So another thing, social proof. If I'm prospecting to Woodpecker, I might not use Honeywell as an example of one of my current clients because Woodpecker as an organization and Honeywell are very, very different from a size and industry perspective. And then the last piece I use a text to speech reader to proofread my emails and actually have it like read them out loud. This is usually for like more complex emails that I'm sending in deal cycle, or if it's the first time I've written a template and I've like read it a couple times. Sometimes your brain can just misspellings or like grammatical errors, and like I don't know, I get tired reading stuff out loud, and so I'll literally plug it into a text to speech reader to read it, and I can hear it, and it also helps me understand how it sounds. So those are some other things I've done with sales emails.
The second one, really quick. Listen, I lost a massive deal because of this.
You did?
I'm going to tell you like the quick story, but like Fortune 50 organization that we support. I was selling into a Series E startup, and I was like, "Hey, this is what we've done with this company." The immediate response I got was like, "Oh, they're super old school. This is never going to work for us." I never recovered, y'all. Never. I couldn't even go back and send them the other companies that, because it just looked weird. I never got responses back. Ended up getting them later with this feedback, but it's hypercritical.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Now we're gonna take the cold emails from bad ones to great ones. Well, hopefully those are great ones. Nick and Darren are gonna give their perspectives on the email rewrites. But before we do that, I just want to quickly add a psychology on that. I'll be very brief. Why the stuff that we talked about before, all those tips actually make sense. It's all got to do with the way our brains receive new ideas. This is where 90% of cold emails fail, because if we simplify, our brain has three filters. The oldest one is the crocodile brain, and its reaction is the first response to any sort of information that we're seeing, hearing, and feeling. So if the information does not pass through the first filter, you're done. Nothing happens. Like you're not even seeing that. And 90% of the cold emails actually don't pass the first filter. And this is the explanation why. Crocodile brain works this way. If the information is boring, it's going to ignore it. If the information is dangerous, it's going to fight or run. If information is complicated, it's going to try to summarize it and pass it further to midbrain. Well, that's kind of the scenario of cold emails. Boring cold emails. I saw on LinkedIn. Well, guess on that. Like every cold email starts that way. Dangerous. How about a quick 15-minute call or stuff like that? Well, I'm not gonna take care. Complicated. We're the awards-winning world's best New York agency. I don't care about that. So this is what we have to keep in mind. And now let's go into the email rewrites itself. Please quickly scan this original email. This is the usual suspect in all the inboxes. It's like, hey, do you find it difficult to track the availability and utilization of this and this? Then they're going to chime in to explain is like, hey, the lack of visibility makes it difficult to plan, kind of educating people about the problem. And then as a result, you might be missing out on opportunities, kind of try to wrap up the cost of inaction out there to make them think about how big of a difference it makes. Then they kind of trying to imagine having a tool that allows you to track. Well, it has the right ideas over here in this email, but from my perspective, it's got the poor execution because way too much information, unnecessary stuff. All the stuff that was being said here could be summarized and shortened to around 70 words. This is my perspective. And I like to explore more question, but I just want to hear your perspective, Nick and Darren, before we move on to the written version.
Too long. Preview text starts with something that screams sales email. Do you find it difficult? I don't know you. You're immediately slapping me with what looks like a sales question that's going to set me up. What about a bird's eye view of your project's cost, margins, and profitability? That's a lot. That's a lot to ask of me out of the blue. The lack of visibility makes it difficult to plan your resources. Okay, thanks for educating me on a problem I'm already experiencing. As a result, you might be missing out on opportunities to increase your profits. That is too generic of a problem. Every organization on planet Earth wants to increase their profits, and they like it's not believable almost. Imagine having a tool. That phrase, again, screams sales email. And then there's sort of like this. What I'll tell you one of the things I really don't like, which is first name. Would you like to explore more? Because like clearly this person put some work into the template and they're trying to make it seem like, oh, I added your name again at the end because this is really written by me. This just screams template. So too long. Darren, anything you want to add?
I don't know. It says nothing about the organization. Like nothing. They might not even be having these problems. And you might just end up looking dumb. They might be like, yeah, man, I've imagined a tool. I have one. It's really great. Like you're too late. And that's
Yeah.
why I focus on 10Ks and earnings call and sustainability reports. They tell you all of this stuff.
Yeah,
I
that's
look dumb
the
enough in
first thing.
normal life. I can't afford to do it also with my cold emails.
Yeah.
Imagine that having a first meeting and then I bombard you with 3 questions up front without you answering even one. How about that for a conversation starter? Yeah, that's not happening. Um, so now we're gonna roast the rewrite of it. It's gonna slightly better version, but still some things to improve out there. But let's see what's been done there. Hey, from your LinkedIn, it seems like you have 10 Angular developers on your team. These aren't cheap employees just hanging around with no work and price. We can help you visualize in March how many of them will be busy in November. By predicting their workload, you can increase their utilization by 9.5%. It's 150 more hours of work per developer, which can generate you additional 36,000 euros a year. Worth a chat. What do you think about that email?
Yeah.
Darren,
I
after
mean,
you.
listen, I think from your LinkedIn is way overutilized these days.
Agree.
I think it's automatic spam for me. I flat out delete every one of them. I'm like, oh, cool, you didn't read it. So I think leading with the very first part is just like, hey, I've been doing a lot of research on Honeywell. Like that's it. And and like I noticed, I saw, I came across 10 Angular developers. You just talk this through like I mean, I always try to feel like, all right, I'm at a Starbucks line and I have to tell somebody something really quick about what
Mm.
I do. Then just talk that through. Like, and then when you look down, like by predicting their workload, like, I don't know, does like 150, hour more per week per dev make sense to you? Question mark. Like, you don't need to give them all of the context.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you talked about the ability of the best salespeople to synthesize. If I look at that last paragraph, I think there's some synthesis that can be done there where it's like, okay, we can help you visualize. I mean, you could I think I would need a little more time with this, but it's like
Yeah.
visualizing how many developers are going to be busy X months ahead usually helps teams project manage more effectively and increase the team's out. Like we're talking about increasing utilization. What does that actually mean? I hire developers to, I think, to put out new releases faster. And so I might want to tie that to an outcome. So I think it's hard to do in the 42 seconds I think we have left on this webinar. But I think there's some synthesis that could be done on that
So
one.
much better though than the first one. Like not even close.
Agree.
Yeah, what I would say from my perspective, too much information is like, yeah, 24 euros, 9.5%, 150,
Yeah.
36,000. You just want to start a conversation. You don't need all of that information.
Yeah. And it's like, bro, I'm not trying to do math here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Like
can't.
I can't. It's not gonna happen. I barely graduated high school.
now, LinkedIn adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm popping a video, right? I'm walking outside with my backwards hat on and a hoodie. I'm trying to look like I'm confident in what I'm knowing. And so it's like, Yuri, look, you've got 10 developers at Honeywell. I want to help you visualize what's going to happen in March and how we can get more output out of those 10 Angular developers. I also saw that you've got a launch coming up in the next 2 weeks. I saw the post last week. I'd love to chat about it. Here are 3 times that make sense in the next 3 weeks. I always give 3 times.
Nice.
And then like it's a
From
video.
copywriting perspective, it's just the power of three. It performs the best. Like when you're given a post 3 options, works way better than 5 compared to 1. It's just something about that 3, the Holy Trinity.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and folks, we're running way over the planned time. Darren and Nick's got other things lined up in their calendar, so we've got to be respectful of that. Anyone who is interested in more email rewrites, please drop pluses in the chat. We're gonna send you to those after the meetings, after this session ends. We're gonna send you more examples of that, but I hope you've heard and you've learned something today that can help you book more meetings. I mean, how can you not? You've got two of the goats when it comes to LinkedIn social DMs, like, outbound, and basically the sales and cold emails. And, 2 cents from my perspective. So, we've tried to make it as valuable as possible. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And last couple of things that you want to plug, Darren, Nick, you
No,
got any?
I don't have anything to plug for myself. I want to give a shout out to you for putting this together. Somebody texted me while we were here and said there were 617 people on the LinkedIn,
Wow.
watching. So like, just listen, man, you put a lot of effort into this, reaching out to us, trying to get us to agree to this. Your team on the back end made sure that we felt comfortable. Woodpecker has been one of those brands that's just been on the forefront of our mind. That's like, there's trust, there's loyalty there. Y'all check them out. I don't have anything to plug on myself. I'm just out here creating content and slinging deals, man.
Well, I'll plug for Darren. Go and follow him. He's one of the guys. Like, I've learned so much from him, and I was like in my year 6 in sales. That's all you got to know.
Yeah, I think I want to plug Darren also. I think, Darren, one thing that I really respect about you is like, I think in sales, we face a disproportionate amount of rejection and negativity. We might send 100 really like well-intentioned, great prospecting messages, and we get ignored, we get rejected. People call us spammers. Like, we could get shot down more than we win, even if we're phenomenal. And one thing that I really appreciate about you is just like, you have really awesome positive energy. And I know that you have to fight to keep that because you get hit with so much negativity and rejection working in sales. And so, I mean, folks, we literally spent over an hour talking about email deliverability and how to write a sales email, which, like, for a lot of people, you go to a party and tell people, yeah, I spent an hour on a webinar about that. They're like, yeah, I'm going to go get another drink now. But like, I just love Darren and Yuri, you also, like, you guys brought a lot of passion and energy about this. And I believe that, like, the more you learn about this stuff, actually, the more interesting it becomes. So Darren, I appreciate your overwhelming positivity, and Yuri, I really appreciate you working with the team to coordinate this. Folks, thank you for joining. So this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, make sure to check out 30 Minutes to President's Club. It's probably like the best place I've ever come across to learn in some B2B sales content. Always actionable, always super useful. So check them out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, LinkedIn. They're doing great live versions. So thank you guys. It was really, really great.
See you,
Cheers,
everybody.
everybody.